Hi, everyone. Good evening. Our slides are up on the wall. Board members also have this in front of them. And this is an update on where we are so far in our strategic planning process, which is very exciting. I want to acknowledge we have the rock star parent who saved us because we had certain students that had to keep dropping out because suddenly there were, important tests happening at school and they couldn't be absent. And then we had parents lined up and then other events would happen. And so I want to call out Beth Hubbard, who saved the day with like all of 18 hours notice and made it to 2 days of strategic planning, who is here with us this evening. So thank you. Good to see you. Yay. So here's where we are at. And I also would also be remiss if I did not acknowledge Mr. Chaffo and Mrs. Kogan and Mrs. Von Aiken as our board member liaisons to our core team as well. They had more than 18 hours notice though, so you don't get the same acknowledgement. As background context, board members know that when I was first hired 5 years ago, I had the real benefit of being a new leader in the community to have a strategic plan handed to me that had already been thought through with action plans in place, because I've been in other places where I've been hired and then the next thing has been said and come up with a strategic plan. So to have had that work already done, it was guided at that time by consultant Judy Wilson. Judy is the consultant again this time around, and I thought that was really valuable because she knows Parsippany very well, cares deeply about this community and the people, and I think is just a really outstanding facilitator. So in the 5 years that I've been here, I had a very clear roadmap of what we had agreed that we would be working on as a district, and that included academic initiatives, it included social and emotional well-being initiatives, and it included professional development initiatives for our adult learners. With this coming into the 5th year of that, and I had said to the board both at the beginning of the school year and again over the winter that I felt the time was right, if the board agreed, to really sunset this plan and begin the process anew of surveying and talking through to outline a new strategic plan. And so the board and district leaders really worked together to engage the work of a consultant and then to have her guide this work. So one of the things that Mrs. Wilson does is she not only does in interviews with various members of our stakeholder group. So I know all of our board members had the opportunity to be interviewed by Mrs. Wilson. She also interviewed all of our administrators, our key negotiating association leaders, and then compiles that information, but then she also prepares various surveys for different groups, for student groups, parent groups, staff members, leaders, and community and parents. Our core team members, that list is up there, included representatives from our teaching staff. So we had high school, middle school, and elementary school teachers, as well as special education folks. We had administrators and supervisors. Dr. Mulrooney and Mr. Courtwright, our pupil services director, were also included. We had, as I said, Mrs. Hubbard, our parent, and then our board members, and then really 4 outstanding student representatives, 2 from the high school and 2 from the Hills. And when I had reached out to both of our high school principals to ask them for some student recommendations, I said, I'm less concerned about academic development with students than I am about kids who are comfortable talking with adults. Kids who aren't afraid to speak their mind, and that's certainly what we got in a very positive and respectful way. So we really spent 2 days at the beginning of May in our back large conference room where board members go for closed session, and Mrs. Wilson really facilitated a really strong guided discussion about not only what were trends that are occurring currently in education, but then really pushed the group to consider what are the foundational strengths of the district and the major points of pride. What does the district do well systemically, and what are the most pressing needs or most impactful bodies of work moving forward. And she really, I felt, did a very fine job of keeping the focus on that work. She's an excellent taskmaster in a very kind way. We also were able to review the various surveys, the parent, faculty, student, administrative surveys. We had community member surveys, and then non-instructional and instructional support staff. So in total, there were over 4,600 survey responses that every core team member was able to digest in some aspect in their small group. As we were looking at that survey information, we were really considering the characteristics of who today's learner is, because today's learner is different than, certainly, than what we all looked like as students when we were in school, and even perhaps what our own children's experience would have been when they were in school. And then we really unpacked the data. Judy shared information from her interviews as well. And then we really began to talk about what we know and experience in our daily Parsippany school lives with what the data reflected. So one of the things that Mrs. Wilson did was really guide the group through looking at matching the data that was coming from the survey, matching what we know to be true about what all educational organizations and groups are facing, and then guiding us and pushing us to come up with goals that are all-encompassing, multidimensional, clear, shared, can be enacted, and audacious. Really bold goals that will, again, set a roadmap for the district for the next, again, 3 to 5 years moving out. And what our board members saw, if you were in that conference room earlier today, is a number of large sticky charts. And one of the things that each group was doing as they were reviewing the survey data was they were jotting what were the common trends, what was being repeated over and over again, what were the really consistent statements. And then the entire group had an opportunity to sort of gallery walk around the room, and Mrs. Wilson gave everyone red dots and then eventually green dots, and we only had a certain number, and we couldn't tear them in half. And we were posting really the statements that spoke the most to us, that we felt were really the most critical work of the community. And so what board members would have seen in the room are certain goal statements. You know, we're gathering like 12 dots and 10 dots and 14 dots. And so through that was the way we were building consensus around what really seemed most critical and was rising to the surface for the most meaningful work. So what we decided as a group was that the mission statement, which I know the board worked quite hard on 5 years ago, which is on the screen right now, the core team felt, and Mrs. Wilson concurred, that really still rang true and that this did not need any readjustment at all. So we've made no change to the mission statement. Our mission in this school district is, in partnership with families and the greater community, is to challenge and nurture all students academically and to develop confident learners who are compassionate, generous, appreciative, and invested in their diverse world. This will be accomplished through innovative opportunities that inspire lifelong learning, critical thinking and problem solving, creative exploration, and the democratic collaboration among students and staff. And I think when we get to where our 2 strategic planning goals are headed, you'll see that that language is still very, very consistent with the work that we are going to set out to do. So our strategic goals for 2022 through 27, which will be supported by specific and relevant professional development for all staff, include, ta-da, goal 1, focusing on well-being. And Mrs. Wilson asked our student reps, because they are the tech gurus of the group, to come up with hashtags that would really be a way for us to market and brand this work moving forward. So our well-being goal, hashtag their future is bright, is that members of our learning community will receive support for social and emotional awareness and mental and physical health in order to flourish, demonstrate empathy, and celebrate the diversity of all. We know, board members, that as we look at what all school districts are facing, what all young people are facing, is that there is just a consistent and universal need to continue to help our students gain strategies so that they can lead positive lives, have great self-awareness, advocate for themselves and others. And so goal number 1, which is not unlike the goal that we have been working on for the previous 5 years, but this is a little bit more focused into really now focus on mental and physical health as well. And so that would be goal number 1. Goal number 2 focuses on deeper learning, hashtag depth and connection. Says that members of our learning community will design student-centered opportunities that require active student engagement and the authentic connection to real-life experiences that strengthen creative problem-solving, critical thinking, leadership, community service, and social impact. One of the things that I think we saw consistently come out through the survey data was really what we almost called hard and soft skills. There was a very strong interest from parents and staff and students on such opportunities as STEM, ability to think critically, ability to problem solve. And those are things that really can be applied to any content area and any subject area. And then the soft skill really being those life learning pieces. How do we advocate for ourselves? How do we maintain a positive well-being? Because we're knowing now through research that if you're not in a space where you're feeling safe and positive, then you're not really accessing your learning. And so the two are very heavily connected. And so it makes sense that our 2 goals moving forward really focus on these 2 areas and are really, I think, married between the 2. Action plan development is our next step. So where we are now is I looked at our educational team. I tapped 4 really outstanding folks on the shoulder and asked if they would be interested in pursuing this work further. And so I'm really excited that Carly Stout, who is our Brooklawn Middle School principal, she has spoken before our board members before, and Corey Wagesa, who is our supervisor of guidance and medical services. They are co-chairing the Wellbeing Committee, committee number 1. And their meetings are starting, I think their first meeting is either the week after Memorial Day weekend or perhaps the week after that. But they have reached out. They have a group of folks that they're going to be working with as they are developing action plans to really flesh out this work further. The deeper learning work, I asked Dr. Thompson, our Parsippany Hills High School principal, and Marissa Rosa, formerly Knollwood principal, now our supervisor of elementary literacy and media, if they would work together on the deeper learning action plans. And they also have gathered other committee members from elementary, middle, and the high school world to continue that work. We had a few board members put their hand in the air to engage in that work, and I know that Mrs. Benos has shared those meeting dates with all board members so that if anyone else feels that they have, the available time, even if you're not able to attend, we set up 3 meetings right now just to sort of give everybody a tentative end date, like let's try to wrap it up by here, because otherwise we could be in August and then, we won't be ready to start the year the way I'd like to start the year. However, for board members, if you can only make 1 meeting, that's okay. Your voice matters and you're certainly welcome to attend whatever you can. The next step for us is to communicate how we will be moving forward. And so as the action plans are created, the next step I envision is that we would make those available through Google Docs for our board members to comment on, not unlike what we do for district goals every summer. And then as we are preparing for coming into August, the closeout of summer and beginning the school year, beginning to really finalize a more formal presentation so that when the board returns in September, you will be approving not only a strategic plan with very specific action plan items, but then district goals for the 2022-23 school year, just like we have in the past. We know that our strategic plan is a 3 to 5 year runway, but we also craft very specific annual goals that umbrella under the larger strategic plan. So we'll continue to do that, and there will be absolutely opportunity for board member voice throughout that time. So for a timeline, we anticipate, again, sharing the action plans for the 2 goals on or before our July meeting, and you'll have that through Google Docs to take a look at, and that district goals for the coming school year would be prepared in advance of the September board meetings. And as always, board members, anything we present at the board level, we always post it to our website. Mr. Satch is always very good about if we need to do a separate pre-recorded presentation, he's always around to help us with that as well. So that's where we are at, board members. Is there anything that I can help with regard to specific questions? And I would also welcome Mr. Chaffo, Mrs. Von Aken, or Mrs. Kogan to leap in as they were part of this process as well.